Hey there, night traveler. You've wandered far, beyond the hum and flicker of city lights, beyond the busy chatter of the day, all the way back into a world long folded beneath the dust of centuries. You find yourself stepping softly onto a patch of earth beside a small, rough stone cottage, nestled in the rolling hills of ancient Italy. The air is cool and carries the faint scent of damp soil and wild thyme, mingled with the distant, ever-present aroma of wood smoke curling lazily from a crooked chimney. Here, in this quiet corner of the Roman countryside, your story for the night begins, not among emperors and gladiators, not in marble palaces or sunlit forums, but with the simple, often overlooked lives of Roman peasants. Life as a Roman peasant was hardly the stuff of legends or epic tales. It wasn't swooping banners or dramatic speeches or daring escapes through the labyrinth of the city. No, it was quieter than that, slower, and beneath it all, utterly exhausting. If you imagine the grandeur of Rome, the shining temples, the marble statues, the endless parades, you might think that everyone under the empire's vast sky enjoyed a share of that splendor. But the truth is more humbled, more earthy. You might feel the rough texture of coarse linen against your skin, the same fabric worn by the farmers and laborers who woke just as dawn cracked the sky with its pale fingers, stepping out into fields that stretched farther than the eye could see. They weren't crowned with laurel wreaths or dressed in flowing togas embroidered with gold. Instead, their garments were faded, patched, often stained with the stubborn clay of the land they worked so relentlessly. Theirs was a life deeply rooted in the soil, hands hardened by endless toil, backs bent beneath the weight of their tools, and faces weathered by sun and wind. Imagine now the gentle, low murmur of morning, chickens clucking somewhere near the henhouse, the soft bleating of goats tethered close to the stone wall, the whisper of leaves stirred by a timid breeze. You draw a slow breath, and notice how the air tastes faintly of grain and dust, mingled with the faintly sweet perfume of flowering herbs growing wild along the path. This is the backdrop to a day that will stretch out long and steady, measured in the rhythm of planting, harvesting, and tending. There's no rush here, but neither is there rest. Just a steady, relentless cycle of work that never quite ends. You might picture the fields themselves, rows of barley and wheat swaying gently in the light morning breeze, their golden heads nodding as if in quiet conversation with the sky. The peasants would have known these fields intimately, their lives deeply entwined with the unpredictable moods of weather and earth. Rain could be a blessing or a curse, too little, and the crops would wither under the merciless sun, too much, and the soil would turn to muck, choking the fragile seedlings beneath. Its weight, and yet every day they stepped out, tools in hand, boots caked with mud, ready to coax life from the stubborn ground. There was little room for fancy or leisure. The Roman peasant's world was practical, immediate. Shelter meant a sturdy home built from stone and timber, often small and drafty, with a hearth that breathed charcoal smoke into the dim air. You'd lie down on a simple straw mattress, the rough fibers pressing gently beneath you, and listen to the crackle of the fire mingling with the distant howl of a night wind threading through the trees. Comfort was measured not in softness but in survival, a roof that didn't leak, food on the table that day, and the hope that the next day would not bring disaster. As you imagine yourself there, moving slowly through the hours, you might also notice the sounds that filled the quiet moments. The gentle clinking of pottery, the low grumble of voices spoken in a tongue that's faded but still echoes faintly in the valleys and hills. There was a rhythm to life, but one marked more by repetition than novelty, by persistence rather than glory. The peasants were not heroes in the tales told by orators or scribes. They were figures in the background, steady and unremarked, their names lost to time like footprints sunk deep into soft earth, barely visible but undeniably present. This isn't a story of heroic battles or sweeping conquests. It's a story of presence, of enduring, of finding small moments of peace amid relentless labor. So, as you settle in and let your eyes grow heavy, think of the soft glow of oil lamps flickering against rough wooden beams, the gentle creak of a door swinging on ancient hinges, and the quiet, steady breath of a world that never stops moving, even when the stars hang heavy and still. Here, in the slow, measured unfolding of an ordinary day in the life of a Roman peasant, you might find a strange kind of comfort. A reminder that history isn't just made in grand halls and shining cities, but also in the humble weaving of countless quiet lives, lived in the patient embrace of earth and sky. And now, as the night deepens around you, you lie back on your pillow, the weight of 1,000 years settling softly in your bones, and drift gently toward sleep, cradled by the whispers of ancient fields and the steady heartbeat of a world long past but still strangely near. You find yourself stepping quietly through the narrow doorway of a Roman insula, one of those cramped, rickety tenements that cling like barnacles to the busy streets of the ancient city. The air is heavy here, thick with the faint, lingering scent of stale bread, the kind left forgotten on a windowsill from the day before. It's not unpleasant, exactly. It's the smell of ordinary life, the echo of too many hands and hurried meals and small, repeated routines. Your feet tread softly on worn wooden boards that creak under your weight, as if the building itself is sighing in its age. The stairs wind upward in a narrow, twisting stairwell, so steep and uneven that you imagine they have been climbed by generations of sighing tenants before you, their restless feet echoing quietly off cracked plaster and faded frescoes long since dulled by smoke and dust. The walls here are thin, their paint flaking in little curls like brittle leaves, and you feel the faint vibrations of voices and footsteps from other rooms nearby, muffled but persistent, like ghosts whispering just beyond the veil. You climb slowly, your muscles already stiff from the day's labor and the rough ground outside. The coolness of the stone beneath your fingers as you steady yourself against the wall is sharp and grounding. Above you, the ceiling beams groan faintly, shifting with the subtle movements of the tenement as it settles into the coolness of early night. Somewhere far below, a single lamp flickers before sputtering out, leaving shadows to pool in the corners where forgotten things gather. Cracked pots, frayed sandals, discarded scraps of cloth. Finally, you reach your small room, or rather the space that passes for one. It's a cramped, boxy chamber, no bigger than a modest closet, with a low wooden bed stationed against one wall. The frame creaks softly when you press down, the springs sighing under your weight like an old man settling into his chair. The mattress is thin, stuffed with straw that pokes at your back through the coarse linen sheets, rough and scratchy against your skin. You lie down carefully, adjusting your posture as your body protests with dull aches and stiffness that have settled deep into your joints. Already, before the dawn has even begun, you feel the familiar weight of weariness pulling at your bones. The faint smell of smoke drifts in from the hearth below, a thin curl of lingering incense and cooking embers that threads through the stale bread and mingles with the dampness in the air. It is a smell you've come to associate with this place. The scent of life lived close together, of fires that burn low to save precious wood, of evenings spent stirring pots or huddling quietly against the cold stone walls. The air is cool but not cold, carrying the faintest hint of the river's mist that snakes through the city streets and slips in through cracks in the window shutters. Your fingers brush over the rough surface of a wooden table beside the bed, its grain worn smooth in places by the hands of previous occupants. On it rests a simple clay lamp, its wick long burned down to a stub, ready for lighting tomorrow night. Nearby, a small pile of scraps of parchment lies folded and creased, the ink faded and smudged, thoughts once recorded, or maybe a shopping list, now little more than ghostly marks on fragile sheets. The candlelight that used to dance upon these pages would have cast soft shadows that flickered and stretched, merging with the quiet hum of the city's night sounds filtering in. You close your eyes and listen. Somewhere in the distance, a child stirs in the room next door, their restless murmurings muffled by the thin walls. The low murmur of voices drifts faintly up from the street below. Late-night vendors packing away their goods, the occasional clatter of a cart's wooden wheels rattling over cobblestones, and always the creak of the building itself, the subtle shifting of ancient timbers and stone, reminding you that this place, your humble refuge, is alive in its own slow, groaning way. As you lie there, feeling the scratch of the rough sheets against your skin, the dull ache in your back, the slow, steady pulse of your breath, you become aware of the tiny details that make this room what it is. The way the shadows pool under the low window ledge, where a chipped pot sits, empty save for a single dried sprig of some forgotten herb. The faint chill that carries with it the scent of the river, mingling with the warmth of a lingering fire somewhere below. The texture of the stone wall against your fingertips, cool and slightly rough, grounding you in this quiet moment between day and night. It is not a place of comfort, not in the way we might imagine. It is cramped and scratchy, creaky and faintly smoky, filled with the lingering smells of yesterday's bread and the quiet sounds of a city that never truly sleeps. But it is a place of life, of endurance, of small, human moments stitched together in a patchwork of shared existence. In this room, you are just another whisper in the ancient city's breath, held gently in the shadowed embrace of the night. You feel the slow, steady pull of sleep beginning to tug at your eyelids, the soft surrender of tired muscles, the faint promise of rest just beyond the edge of wakefulness. And as you lie there, already sore, already worn, you become part of the quiet rhythm of this place. A small, steady heartbeat beneath the creaking timbers, a whisper beneath the fading glow of candlelight. The city waits outside, busy and bustling, but here, in your little room, time moves a little slower. You breathe in the scent of smoke and stale bread, the coolness of stone and wood, and you let yourself drift, slowly, gently, into the soft embrace of sleep. You settle deeper into your pillow, the soft rustle of your sheets mingling with the faint whisper of the wind outside. The world around you dims gently, the edges blurred and softened, as if you've slipped through a veil of time and space. Now imagine stepping quietly into a humble cottage, its wooden walls worn smooth by countless winters, the scent of damp earth seeping through cracks in the stone foundation. Here, survival doesn't roar or clash like the thunder of armies. Instead, it hums quietly in. The rhythms of everyday life. In this small space, where shadows dance faintly by flickering candlelight, think about what it takes simply to exist. Not the grand gestures fit for scribes or kings, but the slow, persistent battle against elements that seem indifferent to your struggle. Your hands, rough and reddened from cold water, cradle a chipped clay bowl, the scent of yesterday's stewed roots lingering faintly within. It's not a feast, it's a modest meal, but it is what stands between you and the hollow gnawing of hunger, an ache that settles deep in your belly and refuses to be ignored. Cold water flows from a nearby well, its touch biting and sharp as you dip your cupped hands to drink. Imagine the sensation, the chill crawling up your wrists, the slight grit of sand and earth carried in the flow. There is no warmth here, no gentle comfort of a heated hearth beyond the flicker of a candle. You are grateful for even this, knowing that the absence of clean water could mean a slow, creeping sickness. Every sip is a quiet victory, the kind that rarely makes it into tales of glory but is essential all the same. Your teeth, worn uneven and stinging with sensitivity, remind you of a different kind of endurance. There is no dentist's chair padded with leather, no soothing voices or antiseptic tastes. Just the relentless march of time and decay, fed by coarse bread and the grime that clings stubbornly to your hands and clothes. You run your tongue over a chipped molar, the rough edges pressing into your gums, and the faint, dull ache is a constant companion. It speaks of many nights spent swallowing discomfort, of mornings beginning with the bitter taste of poor hygiene and the knowledge that relief is a luxury. Outside, the cold wind wraps around your humble shelter like a slow, persistent whisper, slipping through the cracks and curling around your bones. The chill is never quite absent. It seeps into the fabric of your life, turning your breath to vapor, stiffening your fingers, and reminding you that warmth is hard-won. Your cloak, woven from coarse wool and patched in places, offers some shield, but the cold finds its way in nonetheless. You pull it tighter around your shoulders, savoring the faint scent of lanolin and smoke, a small comfort that lingers in the folds. Grime is woven into the very fabric of your existence, settling into crevices and corners just as the dust settles on the rough-hewn beams overhead. Your hands, though tired, bear the story of labor. The scrape of wood, the tug of coarse fibers, the steady rhythm of work that never ceases. The earth, the water, the smoke, they all leave their mark, and you carry these traces as proof of your quiet perseverance. Even as you lie down on a mattress stuffed with straw, the faint scent of dried grass and the distant echo of fields remind you that each day is a journey through a landscape both harsh and strangely alive. In this world, survival is not scripted by grand battles or whispered in the halls of power. It is etched into the slow pulse of daily needs, the turning of a crank, the stretching of a thread, the careful rationing of a single loaf of bread. It is measured in the slow healing of cracked skin and the persistence of worn soles on stone paths. And as you close your eyes beneath the flicker of candlelight, the weight of these quiet struggles settles softly around you, a lullaby both comforting and true. So as the night deepens and the shadows grow long, remember that survival is often less about the triumph of armies and more about the whispered victories of ordinary lives. Lives marked by grime on the skin, hunger in the belly, the bite of cold water, and the stubborn ache of imperfect teeth. It is in these small, steady acts of endurance that the true heartbeat of history unfolds. And now, as you drift further into sleep, carry with you the gentle hum of this quiet, uncelebrated survival. As you settle in, a soft shadow seems to stretch gently across your room, like a slow breath drawn in the quiet hours between night and morning. You imagine yourself stepping softly through a narrow, winding alleyway of an ancient city, where the air is thick with the mingling scents of wet stone, smoldering hearths, and the faint, earthy aroma of worn leather. The world here is muted, the noises distant. A faint clatter of wooden carts, the occasional murmur of voices carried low on a cool breeze. It's a place both familiar and strange, worn smooth by the passage of countless footsteps, each one folded into the rhythm of daily life. Tonight you're invited on a journey, not one of kings and conquerors, but a slow, steady walk through the more subtle, sometimes overlooked corners of history. The story you'll be following is threaded through the fabric of everyday existence, woven from the lives of the working people who built, toiled, and shaped ancient cities and villages. Their stories aren't gilded with grandeur or adorned with the pomp of empire. Instead, they are quietly etched in the cracked hands of stonecutters, the soot-streaked faces of bakers, and the tired eyes of potters who shaped clay by flickering candlelight. There's a certain intimacy here in tracing these lives often steeped in hardship, yet brimming with small moments of resilience and unexpected oddities. The roads were uneven, the air not always kind, and the work unrelenting. But through these tales, you'll come to understand the rhythms that sustained entire communities. The slow, steady beating heart of ancient labor, the smells of the workshop, and the market mingling with the dusk. You might even catch glimpses of the strange and unexpected, odd customs, peculiar tools, and the small, stubborn sparks of humanity that flickered in the shadows. As you prepare to wander further into this quietly rich world, there is a gentle reassurance. The stories will unfold at their own pace, each one a soft murmur meant to soothe and settle your mind, like the slow drip of water echoing in a stone chamber. There is no rush here, only the steady pull of curiosity and the comfort of knowing you are not alone in this exploration. Each step you take will lead you deeper into a tapestry woven with sweat and shadow, with the faint glow of oil lamps casting long, wavering silhouettes on the walls. So lie back now, breathe in the faint scent of dust and old parchment, and let the quiet textures of the past surround you. Soon, you will meet the people whose days were measured not by grand events but by steady toil, whose lives were punctuated by the humdrum and the peculiar, the difficult and the oddly beautiful. This is a journey through ancient working-class life, in all its grit and grace, an invitation to look closer, listen harder, and drift gently into a world that time might have forgotten, but that still whispers softly beneath the surface, waiting to be heard. You step quietly into the soft golden light of early morning, the air still cool and heavy with the scent of damp earth and faint incense from a nearby temple. Around you, the city slowly stirs, merchants arranging their wares, the low murmur of chatter winding through narrow alleys, the distant clang of a blacksmith's hammer. But your world is closer to the ground, beneath the towering stone facades and marble columns adorned with carved laurel leaves and solemn faces. Today, your task is as it often is, hauling amphorae from the bustling docks to the sprawling market stalls. These tall, slender clay jars, rough to the touch, their curved necks brittle with the stress of countless voyages across sun-dappled seas, are heavy, filled with rich olive oil or dark, fragrant wine. You can almost taste the tang of salt and earth absorbed by the clay, the faint aroma of aged fruit trapped inside. Your hands close around the coarse, curved handles. The clay feels rough against your calloused skin, gritty as the dust of the city streets that clings to every surface. You lift, bending your knees just so, muscles tightening in a dull, relentless ache that has settled deep within your shoulders and back, a familiar companion that whispers of long days and longer nights. As you step carefully over cobblestones, still damp from the morning mist, the weight pulls at your arms in a steady, unyielding tug. The amphora sways slightly with each movement, a pendulum of effort, a reminder that this is no easy task. Your breath comes in slow, measured pulls, the cool air filling your lungs and then releasing in quiet sighs. You can feel the ache in your knees, a throbbing pulse beneath the skin, as if the very bones protest the endless repetition. Around you, the city hums, a background symphony of muted voices and the scrape of wooden wheels on stone. The sun climbs higher, casting warm pools of light that flicker across your skin, making the sweat bead and trickle down your spine. You wipe your forehead with the back of your hand, smearing the dust into a thin, grimy film that clings stubbornly under your nails. Every step is deliberate, every movement a negotiation between your will and the constant, gnawing discomfort. The amphorae need to be moved quickly, stacked carefully in neat rows where vendors will later claim them. But your body remembers every shift in stance, every strain in the muscles that ripple beneath your tanned skin. When you finally set the jar down, the clink of clay against stone echoes softly in the narrow alley, a fragile sound amidst the city's steady pulse. You straighten slowly, stretching your arms out as if to shake off the invisible weight embedded in your limbs. But the ache remains, a dull, persistent reminder of the labor that will continue until the sun dips below the horizon. Later, when the city settles into the quiet lull of late afternoon, you will move to cleaning the latrines. That task carries its own peculiar kind of hardship, one more hidden from the bustling streets, yet no less demanding. The stone walls, cool and rough beneath your fingertips, hold the faintest traces of moss and moisture. The stale, earthy scent lingers in the damp air, mingled with the sharp tang of herbs once placed there to mask odors that never truly disappear. You will crouch low, fingers steady and sure despite their trembling weariness, scrubbing away the layers of refuse that settle like shadows in the corners. The work is solitary, the silence broken only by the soft drip of water from a cracked clay vessel, the faint rustling of crumpled parchment left behind by careless users. The smell will cling to your clothes, stubborn and unyielding, as will the knowledge that this too keeps the city breathing, its streets cleaner, its people safer. By nightfall, when the candles flicker and the shadows grow long and soft, you will lie down on a simple mat, the rough weave of wool and flax grinding gently against your skin. The aches will hum quietly, a low, constant melody beneath your bones. You will close your eyes, the weight of the day melting slowly into rest, and listen to the distant call of the city's night watch, the whispered promises of sleep. And somewhere beneath it all, the steady ache will remain, an unspoken mark of labor, endurance, and the quiet dignity of doing the work that keeps the world turning, one heavy step at a time. As you step from the quiet shade of a narrow side alley into the bustling heart of the market streets, the world shifts around you. The air becomes thick and heavy, alive with a kaleidoscope of sounds and smells that seem to press close against your skin, almost like a living thing. The sun hangs low, casting long shadows that stretch across uneven cobblestones, worn smooth by the countless feet of traders, servants, and passers-by who have passed this way before you. You find yourself surrounded by a cacophony of human activity, a medley of voices raised in barter and complaint, punctuated by the clatter of wooden carts creaking under the weight of their goods. The smell here is complex, layered like an old, rich tapestry woven from the scents of fresh bread mingling with the sour tang of spilled wine, the sharp bite of dried fish, and beneath it all, the ever-present musk of unwashed bodies and damp earth. It's not a smell you would find charming, but rather a vivid reminder that this place is alive, messy, and real. You move carefully, your steps tentative on the uneven stones, mindful of the carts that lumber along without much concern for foot traffic. A creaking wagon loaded with barrels past you, and with a soft breath, you step aside just in time, feeling the warm rush of air as it brushes against your cheek. Nearby, a group of drunks lurch and whisper, their voices hushed but thick with the familiarity of tipsy camaraderie, their laughter low and sometimes sharp like the crack of a whip. Their faces are flushed, hair tousled, breath heavy with the scent of stale ale, and something a little sour you can't quite place. You keep your gaze low and your body close to the walls, avoiding their wild swings and the unpredictable sway of their movements. Amidst the chaos, you catch glimpses of another world, one just out of reach but close enough to tease your senses. Patricians, those high-born figures draped in silk robes that gleam faintly in the fading sunlight, move with a deliberate grace that sets them apart from the throng. Their robes whisper softly as they glide past, the fabric catching the light in subtle waves like water. The rich smell of fine perfumes and imported spices seems to trail behind them like a ghost, contrasting sharply with the sweat and dust that cling to your own worn rags. Their eyes, distant and guarded, flicker briefly toward the crowd, perhaps aware of the disparity between their world and yours, but choosing to look away. You imagine the feel of those silks, how they would slide cool and smooth beneath your fingers, so unlike your own rough linen and patched wool. The soft rustle of their gait, contrasting with the harsh scrape of your boots on stone. The way their shadows fall tall and confident, while your own seems small and easily lost among the jumble of shapes and colors. As you navigate the marketplace, your senses sharpen, attuned to the dance of survival happening all around you. A fruit seller squints at you, his hands sticky with the juice of crushed grapes, offering a bruised fig with a knowing glance. You decline with a quiet shake of your head, not trusting that even such a small comfort is truly meant for someone like you. Nearby, the clinking of money exchanged snaps your attention toward a shadowed corner where a nobleman hastily counts coins, his fingers adorned with rings that sparkle faintly under the dull light of a flickering oil lamp. Your skin prickles with a mixture of envy and weariness. The market is loud, smelly, and tense, a world of contrasts where the opulence of the few shimmers awkwardly against the grime and toil of the many. You weave through it all, a ghost among the living, stealing small, careful glances at a life you know you'll never fully touch. And yet, there is something deeply human in this messy, fragrant chaos, something that, as you draw your cloak tighter around your shoulders, pulls you gently into its rhythm and hum, a lullaby of survival whispered in the heartbeat of the market. You lie back gently on a rough wooden bed, the coolness of the plank beneath you contrasting with the warmth of a wool blanket pulled up to your chin. The light in the room is dim, flickering softly from a small candle resting on a nearby table, its wax melting in slow, uneven rivulets. The scent of herbs, a curious blend of garlic and something earthy, maybe sage or rosemary, drifts lightly through the air, mingling with the faint, persistent odor of damp stone walls. It feels quiet here, almost peaceful, but the stillness only seems to emphasize the dull ache throbbing somewhere deep inside you. In this time, long before modern remedies, your body is a fragile vessel under siege by ailments both visible and unseen. Small, angry boils flare across your skin, Their red swollen heads a constant reminder that your defenses are thin. You trace one absently with a trembling finger, feeling the tender heat beneath the surface, your skin tight and stretched. They start as tiny irritations, like an insect bite perhaps, but quickly swell and throb with a slow, burning pulse. You cannot ignore them, and yet there is little you can do. The boils seem to mock your helplessness, a small rebellion of your body against the world's indifference. Parasites, those unwelcome guests in the shadows of your flesh, crawl unseen but felt in every restless shift of your body. Somewhere in your gut or beneath your skin, they live quietly, feeding, multiplying. You imagine them like tiny, writhing shadows beneath the surface, worms, lice, fleas, invisible to the eye but keenly experienced as a gnawing discomfort that never quite fades. There is no sudden cure here, no magic potion to banish them instantly. They burrow and linger, and all you can do is hope to keep them at bay through a regimen of careful washing and the application of foul-smelling salves. When toothache strikes, it is a different kind of torment but no less unbearable. You clutch your jaw, feeling the dull, relentless throb that radiates from a single rotten tooth, a constant reminder of time's slow decay on your body. The pain pulses with every heartbeat, a steady drumbeat of distress that shadows your every thought. There is no dentist's drill, no soothing anesthesia. Instead, you press a crushed clove of garlic against the sore place, biting down tentatively, the fiery, pungent taste stinging your gums and nose. It is a desperate, temporary relief, a whispered promise of comfort that vanishes as quickly as it comes. Medical care here is a fragile dance between hope and ritual, between the tangible and the spiritual. Garlic, with its sharp, earthy aroma and bite, is your first defense, a barrier against infection, a ward against evil spirits that are thought to cause or worsen disease. You might find a small bundle of garlic cloves tied with a faded ribbon, hanging in the doorway, its scent mingling with the thick, smoky tendrils of incense that burn softly in the corners. The smoke curls upwards in lazy spirals, filling the room with its sweet, resinous aroma, a balm for the mind if not the body. Prayer is the other vital remedy. You kneel on the cold stone floor, fingers intertwined, whispering fragmented pleas towards the flickering candlelight. Your voice is a hushed murmur, barely audible except to the shadows that cling to the ceiling beams. You ask for mercy from saints and angels, entreating them to intercede on your behalf. The words are soft, repetitive, winding like smoke through the still air. Here, faith becomes a kind of medicine, as palpable as any herb or poultice, as necessary as water or fire. Yet even with garlic and prayers, there is a profound sense of helplessness that settles around you like a thick, velvet cloak. You feel it in the way your body trembles with fatigue, in the slow dragging of your limbs, in the quiet dread beneath your breath. Illness moves through your small world like a shadow, unpredictable and unyielding, indifferent to your suffering. The people around you, the healers and midwives, can only offer their remedies and rituals, but the final outcome remains a whispered secret between you and whatever forces govern life and death. You catch yourself watching the candle flame, its delicate dance a small consolation in the vast uncertainty. The flickering light plays across the rough-hewn wooden walls, casting long, wavering shadows that seem to bend and stretch in sympathy with your pain. Outside, the night deepens, cold and implacable, and you feel the weight of your own vulnerability more keenly than ever. The world is big and silent, and your body, for all its quiet strength, is fragile and uncertain. In the soft embrace of this dimly lit room, the boundaries between body and spirit feel thin, flickering like the candle's flame itself. You are caught between the tangible discomfort of boils and aching teeth, the crawling awareness of parasites beneath your skin, and the unseen forces of prayer and hope, a delicate balance held in the steady, whispered breath of a night that seems endless. And in this fragile space, your suffering is both unique and universal, a quiet testament to the resilience and fragility that have always marked the human experience. You lie down at last on the narrow wooden cot, its surface rough and uneven beneath the thin, scratchy blanket that barely shields you from the cold seeping in through the cracks of the stone walls. The scent of damp earth mingles with the faint, lingering traces of smoke from a dying candle long since snuffed out. Your bones feel heavy and sore, as if they have carried the weight of the entire day. And yet, the stubborn ache pulses gently beneath your skin, reminding you that you are still very much alive, still very much here. Your stomach rumbles faintly, a low, steady growl that seems to echo softly against the silence. Hunger is a familiar companion now, as constant as the shadows that gather and retreat in the flickering light of the corridor just beyond your door. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the quiet wrap around you like a velvet curtain, soft and thick, settling you deeper into the worn fibers of the cot. The roughness of the wood presses into your back, a steady presence grounding you in the reality of this place. Somewhere close by, a rat scurries across the floor, the delicate scratch of its tiny claws on stone barely audible but unmistakably there in the stillness. It moves with a frantic, skittish energy, darting into the shadows like a ghost made of whiskers. Its presence is unsettling, yet oddly soothing, the reminder that life, in all its fragile persistence, continues even here, even now. You breathe in slowly, the cool air filling your lungs and mingling with the faint smell of mold and old parchment that clings stubbornly to the walls. The day's exhaustion settles deeper now, a heavy cloak that wraps around your shoulders and pulls at your eyelids, urging you toward sleep. But just as you begin to drift, the low rumble in your belly reminds you that the morrow will be no kinder. Hunger will greet you again with its empty insistence, and the cold walls will continue to press in, unyielding and silent. Tomorrow will be worse. You know this as surely as you know the slow tick of time passing in this somber place, each moment a gentle reminder of the quiet endurance required to simply survive. Yet in this stillness, in the soft embrace of shadows and whispers, there is a strange comfort. The world outside, with all its noise and fury, is distant here. Here, there is only the slow rhythm of breath, the soft scratching of a rat's paws, and the gentle surrender of your weary body to the night. As your eyes close fully, the cot creaks ever so slightly beneath you, and the cold stone below hums with age-old stories and forgotten dreams. You are part of this quiet now, a fleeting presence in a space measured not by clocks, but by the patient, steady pulse of simple survival. And with that thought, your last conscious breath sighs away. Carrying you softly into the dark, you find yourself stepping gently into a dimly lit kitchen somewhere deep in the folds of history, where the scent of smoke and stone lingers faintly in the air. The room is quiet, save for the occasional crackle from a low fire nestled in the hearth, casting soft shadows that flicker lazily across rough-hewn wooden beams. The mustiness of aged timber and the faint tang of dried herbs hang in the air, almost like whispers from a time when food was less a certainty and more a fleeting, fragile hope. Your eyes adjust to the muted light, and you notice a small wooden table, scarred by years of use, holding the remnants of a meager meal. There, a few slices of bread rest on a roughly woven cloth. The bread is dense and coarse, its surface uneven, almost abrasive. As you reach out to touch it, you imagine the sensation, grainy and rough against your fingertips. This bread is no soft, fluffy loaf from a modern bakery. Instead, it is packed tightly with grit, a reminder of the unrefined grains hastily ground between stones, carrying with it the very earth from which it came. The crust is hard, cracked, and the color varies from pale beige to streaks of dull gray. You can almost taste the dryness, how it would scrape your mouth and insist you drink water with every bite. The scarcity of food has marked every corner of this humble kitchen. Fresh ingredients are luxuries rarely afforded here. Instead, you might find a hunk of bread like this, offering sustenance more through necessity than pleasure. The grain is not carefully sifted, and the meal contains fragments of husk and grit, leftovers of milling from an age before modern refinement. It is a reminder that food was fuel above all else, not a source of indulgence. Near the bread, a simple clay jug holds watered wine. You lift the jug carefully, feeling the coolness of the ceramic against your palm. When poured into a rustic cup, the liquid is pale, diluted, almost transparent. The aroma is faint, a whisper of sweet fruit overwhelmed by water's presence. Wine in this time is precious, a luxury carefully rationed, and often stretched thin to meet more mouths than it might otherwise satisfy. It carries the hope of warmth and comfort, but delivers only a muted echo of its former richness. Sometimes, if fortune, or misfortune depending on how you see it, allowed, there might be a fish. But fish were not the fresh, glistening creatures you might imagine from a modern market. Instead, they were likely caught days earlier, preserved somewhat by the cool river or salted to extend their life, but never quite escaping the scent of decay. The skin would be dull and lifeless, the flesh firm but tinged with the sourness of beginning to spoil. You learn to accept this as normal, the subtle bitterness a small price for the nourishment it offered. Hunger, then, was a constant companion. Not the sharp, sudden pang you might feel when skipping a meal today, but a dull, persistent weight pressing gently in the pit of your stomach. It was so familiar that it became part of your body's rhythm, a low hum of discomfort just beneath the threshold of notice. You eat not for pleasure, but to stave off the gnawing emptiness that threatens weakness. Each meal is a patchwork of what little the land and the seasons could offer, often less than enough, often barely touching the edges of your need. The very act of eating becomes a slow ritual, not in celebration, but in quiet necessity. You take small bites, mindful of the bread's harsh texture, chewing deliberately to extract what little sustenance lies within. The wine washes the dryness away, though it leaves you longing for the sweetness that has been diluted beyond recognition. The fish, if present, is handled with care, each morsel balanced between gratitude and wariness. Outside, the world carries on in the same muted tones. The fields that once promised bounty now hold only sparse yields or lie fallow. Livestock are thin, their ribs visible beneath coarse hides. Markets, when they open, hum softly with cautious barter over small quantities of grain, a handful of root vegetables, or a few eggs. Yet, even these are often out of reach for many, swallowed up by the needs of those with greater means, or lost to the vagaries of weather and war. The scarcity of food is more than just a practical challenge. It shapes the very air around you, the way people move and speak, the way hands reach out across tables, sometimes trembling with the quiet desperation of hunger. It is a shadow that lingers in homes like this one, a slow and steady presence that you learn to acknowledge and endure. As you lie back now, perhaps in a small chamber illuminated only by the flicker of a single candle, the warmth of the hearth fading behind you, you carry with you the faint taste of that gritty bread, the diluted wine, the memory of fish long past freshness. Hunger is normal here, a quiet undercurrent in the stream of daily life, a reminder of survival more than comfort. And in the stillness, as your breath slows and your eyes grow heavy, you might find a strange kind of peace in the knowing that even in scarcity, life endures, marked by the resilience of those who faced the empty table and made it through to another dawn. You find yourself in the heart of a bustling city square, where the air is thick with the mingled scents of roasting chestnuts and the less agreeable odors of damp stone and human sweat. Around you, cobblestones worn smooth by countless feet stretch under your gaze, their uneven surfaces catching the amber light of flickering oil lamps hung from wrought iron posts. It is evening, but the city hums with an unrelenting energy, a restless beat that echoes through narrow streets and spills into wide open spaces. Here, among the throng of people, lies a form of entertainment that speaks to a very different sort of hunger. The hunger not for bread or warmth, but for stories, for spectacle, for something to distract from the daily grind. You settle into the edge of the crowd, feeling the roughness of cold stone beneath your fingers as you lean back against a weathered wall. The murmurs of gossip ripple through the air like a gentle tide, carrying with them fragments of scandal and whispers of secret affairs. Faces glow faintly in the lamplight, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and morbid fascination. Here, in this open theater of the streets, the lives and misfortunes of others become a kind of weary companionship, a shared experience binding the crowd together in silent understanding. There, beyond the flickering torches, a wooden scaffold rises ominously, draped in the inescapable shadow of justice carried out in public view. The executioner, a figure cloaked in dark, loose garments, moves with a calm precision that belies the gravity of his task. The condemned stand beneath his gaze, their faces pale under the cold touch of the night air, their breaths shallow and quick. You listen to the whispers around you, names, crimes, protests, from petty theft to political treason, each one a story folded into the fabric of this grim ritual. The crowd's attention is rapt, caught in the slow, deliberate unfolding of a punishment that is as much performance as it is consequence. As you watch, a strange sense of rhythm sets in. The crowd leans forward, as if drawn into a slow-motion dance of life and death. The executioner's tools rest silently by his side, a gleaming blade, worn rope, or cruel iron collar, each promising a different fate. The condemned sometimes plead, their voices cracking like dry leaves in a chill wind, but the words are swallowed by the heavy night, lost amid the shuffling feet and whispered prayers. In these moments, you find your thoughts drifting, not toward fear or revulsion, but toward an odd, quiet empathy. You wonder how it must feel to be on this stage, stripped of all but your raw humanity, your story ending here under the cold gaze of strangers. Nearby, the shouts and laughter of a different crowd mingle with the somber undertones of the scaffold. A group of men are engaged in a dice game, their hands moving with slow, deliberate rhythm over wooden cups and worn ivory bones. The dice clatter softly against the rough-hewn table, a sound both comforting and tense, echoing the fragile hopes pinned on chance. The players' faces are set in expressions of careful calculation and thinly veiled desperation, a dance of luck and skill that offers the briefest respite from the grinding certainty of poverty. You lean in slightly, the faint scent of spiced wine and sweat mixing in the air around you. The game is simple but layered, each roll a small story of risk and reward. A murmured agreement here, a sly glance exchanged there. These small rituals bind the players together, creating a fragile community in the midst of hardship. Watching them, you realize that for many in this city, entertainment is not about grandeur or luxury, but about these modest moments of shared tension and relief, a way to carve out a little light in a world often cloaked in darkness. As the dice game continues, your gaze drifts toward a battered wooden platform set a short distance away. From here, a troupe of street performers entertains with mimicry and jest, their voices low and theatrical, weaving tales of jesters, thieves, and gods with a delicate touch of irreverence. Children gather at their feet, wide-eyed and clutching ragged dolls, their laughter soft and bright against the backdrop of the city's deeper, somber sounds. Adults stand a little further back, their faces lined with fatigue, yet their eyes glinting with faint amusement. Here in this transient circle of light and shadow, the city's worn spirits find a momentary lift, a thread of joy that, while fragile, is real. And then your attention is drawn to the distant roar of the amphitheater, rising like a vast stone beast from the earth. Though you are far from its center, the echoes of the crowd's cheers reach you, carried on the night breeze. The gladiators fight not just for survival, but for something more elusive: fame, favor, and perhaps the slender hope of glory. You watch the swirling patterns of their struggle in your mind's eye, imagining the clash of metal against metal, the spray of sweat and dust, the shouts and cries that fill the arena. They are warriors in a cruel dance, their fates entwined with the whims of the spectators who feast on their danger and valor. You wonder in a quiet, almost guilty way if those gladiators are the lucky ones. Their lives are marked by peril, yes, but also by moments of undeniable power and recognition. Unlike the poor who crowd the streets, watching executions or gambling over dice, these combatants command attention, their stories etched into the collective memory of the city. In their danger lies a kind of freedom, a break from anonymity, a chance to be remembered, even if only fleetingly. As you lie back on the cold stone, the murmurs of the crowd fade into a soft, steady hum. The city, with all its grit and shadow, seems to breathe around you, a living tapestry of human endurance and desire. Tonight, entertainment for the poor is not grand spectacles or lavish banquets, but the raw, unvarnished theater of survival. The whispered rumors, the quiet games of chance, the stark finality of public justice, and the fleeting glory of the gladiators' fight. In these moments, beneath the flickering light and the watchful stars, you find a strange comfort in the steady pulse of human stories, unfolding as they have for centuries. And as your eyelids grow heavy, you allow yourself to drift, cradled by the gentle rhythms of a world that, despite its hardships, never ceases to tell its tales. You step carefully through the narrow, winding streets, the uneven cobblestones cool beneath your feet, worn smooth by countless passers-by long since vanished into the mists of time. The evening air is thick with a soft hush, as if the town itself is holding its breath, waiting for the unseen to stir. Above you, shadows flicker and dance, long, trembling fingers cast by the flickering glow of oil lamps and the thin curls of smoke rising from clay pots of incense. The scent of juniper and myrrh lingers faintly, a delicate veil of something sacred and strange draping the air. In this solemn quiet, A gentle yet unsettling weight settles over you. It is the kind of feeling that creeps into every corner of your skin, a subtle shiver along your spine that whispers of things beyond your understanding. The gods, once close and warm as a hearth fire, now seem distant, their faces hidden behind veils of cloud and shadow. Their voices have grown faint, elusive like the murmur of wind through dry leaves, and you are left to navigate a world where fear and faith intertwine in a delicate, trembling dance. You can feel the eyes of the street priests before you see them, figures wrapped in threadbare robes, their faces half hidden beneath deep hoods that swallow their expressions. They move slowly, their footsteps almost silent, their presence marked by the faint scent of burning herbs and old parchment. These men and women are the fragile threads holding the frayed tapestry of belief together, wandering among the alleys and squares, offering whispered prayers and tokens to stave off misfortune. Their words are soft incantations, like the rustle of dry leaves or the gentle tapping of rain against stone. You catch fragments of their chants carried on the night breeze, a plea to ward off the evil eye, a request for protection from restless spirits, a murmur against the darkness that seems to press in from all sides. Their voices rise and fall, a soothing lullaby and a desperate cry wrapped into one, each phrase steeped in ancient ritual and trembling hope. Around you, the city hums softly with superstition. Doors are marked with charcoal crosses to repel wandering demons. Bits of garlic hang above windowsills, their pungent aroma a sharp contrast to the sweet incense that curls like smoke tendrils through the air. On the cracked plaster walls, faded symbols are scratched lightly protective sigils, meant to shield against curses and ill fortune. Children clutch small amulets, their tiny fingers wrapped tightly around smooth stones or worn beads, believing them to hold the power to keep nightmares at bay. You pause before a modest shrine tucked into the corner of a weathered stone wall. A small wooden shelf holds an assortment of offerings, a cracked bowl of salt, a sprig of dried lavender, a few coins left by hands trembling with hope. The candle placed there burns low, its flame a fragile pulse against the encroaching darkness. You reach out, your fingers brushing the wick with a tenderness born of quiet prayer, and light your own candle from it. The tiny flame flickers, casting soft, trembling light onto the rough stone and illuminating the delicate carvings that frame the shrine. Though the gods feel far away, cold and silent, the simple act of lighting a candle is a whisper of connection. It is a gesture that bridges the vast gulf between fear and faith, a small beacon in the creeping night. The flame dances gently, a warm heartbeat against the chill of doubt, and you feel for a moment that perhaps you are not entirely alone. You breathe in the scent of melting wax and the faint trace of incense, letting it mingle with the night air. The world feels vast and shadowed, full of strange portents and silent gods, yet here, in the glow of this humble flame, there is a fragile thread of comfort. The superstitions and fears that weave through the town's nights are like the trembling shadows cast by the candlelight, elusive, mysterious, and strangely beautiful in their quiet persistence. You stand for a while, eyes half closed, tracing the flickering shadows on the wall. The distant murmur of prayers and the soft rustle of robes blend into the rhythm of your breath. The street priests will continue their rounds, their voices a gentle hum against the night, and the omens, seen in the flight of birds or the sudden chill in the air, will weave their silent stories into the fabric of the town's life. And yet, despite it all, this candle burns, a small, steadfast light amid the encroaching unknown. You take comfort in its fragile glow, a quiet promise that even in the face of distant gods and whispered fears, a flicker of hope endures. You lie back against the rough-hewn wood of your bed frame, the faint scent of pine and aged straw mingling in the cool night air. The dim glow of a single candle flickers softly on the cracked plaster walls, casting long, trembling shadows that dance like restless spirits just beyond your reach. The room is quiet save for the muted creak of old timbers settling, and the occasional whisper of wind sneaking through the gaps in the thick stone walls. Outside, the world slumbers beneath a blanket of cold and darkness, where the moon's pale light washes over the barren fields and forgotten paths you trudge by day. You pull your thin blanket closer around your shoulders, feeling the uneven stitches and threadbare patches against your skin. It's never enough to ward off the chill entirely, but it's the closest thing you have to comfort in this endless cycle of days that seem to bleed into one another like a slow, gray river. The coarse fabric scratches gently, a reminder of the life you endure, a life of steady hardship, hunger gnawing quietly beneath your ribs, and a shadow of weariness that settles deep into your bones. As you close your eyes, you wonder, will it ever get better? The thought seems almost absurd, fleeting like a half-remembered dream slipping away before you can hold on to it. You recall the faint warmth of sun on your face last summer, the brief respite of a meal that didn't leave your stomach hollow and echoing. But those moments are ghosts now, and the future feels as cold and unyielding as the stone beneath your feet. The world you live in is one of scarcity and quiet endurance, where hope is a fragile thing tucked away in the corners of your mind, shielded from the harsh light of reality. Yet in the stillness of the night, your heart conjures a different kind of vision. You picture yourself in a place where the air smells sweet with the smoke of burning wood and the rich earth of freshly turned soil. You imagine the soft murmur of voices around a hearth, the gentle crackle of firelight weaving patterns on faces warmed by simple kindness. You see a table heavy with food, thick bread, golden and crusty, bowls of steaming stew filled with tender vegetables and fragrant herbs, a cup of warm wine to ease the cold's sharp bite. Your hands, rough and tired, reach out to gather these gifts, and for a moment, hunger loosens its grip. In this dream, the weight of weariness presses less heavily upon you. The hard edges of your life blur into softness, the jagged rocks of your days rounded by the gentle tides of peace and fullness. You breathe in deep, the rich, smoky air filling your lungs, and even though you know morning will bring back the same struggle, the same gnawing emptiness, you allow yourself to sink into this fleeting warmth. Outside, the night stretches on, vast and unchanging. But within these quiet moments behind closed eyes, you drift slowly into a landscape where survival is not a daily battle, but a quiet song humming beneath your skin. Here the cold loses its sharpness, hunger its urgency, and the dull ache of longing is soothed by a gentle certainty. That for now, in this fragile sliver of time, you are safe, warm, and full. You settle into a quiet corner of your mind, where the past drifts like a slow-moving fog, soft and enveloping. The air is cool, with the faint scent of old wood and a distant whisper of earth, like a forgotten cellar beneath an ancient house. Imagine yourself sitting by a low-burning candle, its flame trembling gently in the stillness, shadows stretching out long and slow against the cracked plaster walls. Tonight, you're not just listening, you're stepping into a world where freedom is not a given but a rare and fragile luxury, one that some people have always been denied. So maybe you think of freedom as something obvious, a right you have simply because you breathe. but pause for a moment and consider. What if you aren't free? Or perhaps your spouse isn't? Feel the weight of that thought. It isn't an abstract concept, not a distant history lesson told in bright classrooms or bustling museums. It's a quiet, pressing reality that shaped the lives of millions. The world you are imagining is one where your body, your very being, is not yours to command. Your movements, your words, your choices, all held gently, but firmly, by someone else's hands. Picture a day in this world. You wake up to the low groan of dawn, the faintest flicker of light slipping through wooden slats. Your room is small, barely larger than a closet, with rough stone walls and the coolness of the earth beneath your feet. There's no key in your pocket, no door to unlock that leads you outside onto a bustling street or a sunlit field. Instead, there's the quiet sound of footsteps approaching, a reminder that your day, your very existence, is scheduled by another. Freedom in this place is a luxury far beyond the reach of most. It isn't something you can buy or inherit easily. It's a delicate flower, cultivated in rare gardens, surrounded by high walls and watchful guards. You might wonder about those who stand beside you, your spouse, your companion, the person with whom you share whispered hopes in the dark. Perhaps they walk freely, or perhaps they too are bound, tethered by rules and chains invisible and visible. Love in such a world is a complicated thing. It can be a source of warmth and strength, but also a reminder of what is lost or stolen. Imagine the gentle pressure of a hand, roughened by labor yet tender in touch, slipping through the gaps of a barred window. You reach out, but the space between you feels like a chasm carved by time and circumstance. The world outside is vast and bright, but you remain inside, beneath ceilings that know your secrets and walls that have witnessed countless quiet tears. In this space, freedom is more than walking without chains. It is the right to own your story, to make choices about where to go, what to say, how to live. It is the chance to wake with the sunrise not as a servant of another's will, but as the author of your own day. This idea, this fragile hope of freedom, is woven through history like a faint thread in an ancient tapestry, often overshadowed but never entirely erased. You can hear its hum beneath the clatter of work, beneath the shuffle of feet dragging through dirt paths, beneath the whispered prayers at dusk. And yet, for many, freedom is not just about the outside world. It's about the quiet rebellion in the heart, the secret moments of resistance, the stolen glances, the hidden songs carried softly beneath the breath. It is in these small acts that the human spirit claims a hint of its own liberty, even when the body remains confined. So as you lie back, feeling the steady rhythm of your own breathing, let this thought settle gently. Freedom is not universal, not guaranteed. It is a rare jewel, often held by some and denied to others, a complex and precious gift that shapes every whispered story of the past. Tonight, as the candle burns low and shadows stretch long, you hold a quiet vigil for those who lived without the luxury of freedom, whose stories echo softly in the stillness, waiting to be heard. And in hearing them, you honor the fragile light of liberty, flickering gently against the darkness as you settle deeper into the soft embrace of your blankets. The quiet flicker of candlelight casting long shadows across your room. Let yourself drift into the shadows of a faraway past. Picture a sprawling estate, maybe somewhere warm and humid, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and distant wildflowers. Beneath the towering columns of the grand manor house, between the rustling leaves and cracked stone pathways, there exists a world unseen by most. a delicate web of hidden relationships woven quietly across the divides of slavery and rigid class. Here, in the hushed spaces where the master's gaze seldom reaches, connections form like whispers curling in the night air. It's a fragile, secret language spoken in glances and soft touches, in shared smiles barely daring to surface. These relationships are not the loud, clanging rhythms of revolt or despair. Instead, they're the muted hum of survival, companionship, and sometimes, even something that edges close to joy. Imagine the servants. They move like shadows, stepping softly on worn wooden floors, their hands steady yet tender as they carry trays of steaming tea or fold fine linens. Among them there are those bound by chains, their skin darker and marked by hard labor, yet beneath the weight of their imposed roles, they find each other. An exchange of a stolen berry in the kitchen garden, a quick brush of fingers reaching for the same threadbare cloth. These moments are small but sacred. They are a quiet rebellion against isolation, a way to claim a fragment of humanity in a world that tries relentlessly to deny it. Look closer, and you might see the subtle defiance in a knowing glance between a house slave and a field worker. Despite the near-impossible circumstances, they share stories in the dark, stories passed down like precious heirlooms, stories that keep hope alive. They whisper about distant lands, about the taste of freedom they have never known but imagine in the softness of a lullaby sung under the moonlight. It's a world where whispered secrets become lifelines, where intimacy is a shield against despair and laughter, so soft and cautious, becomes a rare kind of magic. But these moments are shadowed by danger. Every connection, no matter how tender, is a risk. The eyes of overseers are sharp and unyielding, and rumors are like wildfire, spreading swiftly and cruelly. A smile shared across the kitchen can be twisted into suspicion. A touch on the arm, meant to comfort, can ignite fear in the eyes of those who watch too closely. This precarious dance between closeness and caution defines every interaction, making the kindness all the more precious, all the more fragile. Yet these relationships do not only take root among those enslaved. On rare occasions, boundaries blur in small, almost imperceptible ways. A quiet glance exchanged between a young servant and the child of the household, a fleeting moment of empathy that neither fully understands. Perhaps a master's daughter, restless and sheltered, sneaks into the garden to speak softly with a slave who teaches her a word or two in a language unknown to her. These crossings of class lines are always muted, wrapped in layers of silence and ambiguity, but they ripple quietly through the strict order of things. In the dim light of twilight, you might envision a secret place, a hollowed tree stump behind the quarters, or a small alcove beneath the staircase, where stories are swapped, where hands touch without fear for a breath. It's a space carved out in the margins of oppression, a sanctuary built from necessity. Here, music might rise softly, a whispered melody hummed by a calloused throat, joining with the murmur of hushed laughter, a brief and precious reprieve from the harshness of the day. The shared hardships forge bonds that are complex and layered. Sometimes, these bonds lead to quiet acts of kindness, a portion of stolen food passed under the table, a word of comfort when the world outside grows cold and cruel. Other times, they spark moments of startling tenderness, fragile as cobwebs but no less real. It is in these stolen connections where the human spirit asserts itself against the weight of circumstance. You might imagine a pair of hands meeting in the dark, skin brushed against skin, a gentle affirmation that even in captivity, there is room for hope. It is a secret language woven from glances, from the careful exchange of a worn flower petal or a folded scrap of parchment with a hastily drawn heart. These tiny rebellions against isolation carry a weight far heavier than chains. They are a testament to the unyielding desire for connection. And yet, always, there is the shadow of consequence lurking nearby. To be discovered in such moments could mean punishment beyond imagination, a reminder that these relationships, as quiet and beautiful as they might be, exist under the cold gaze of oppression. It is a delicate balance, a tightrope walked daily with cautious grace. So as you listen to the soft crackle of the candle's flame, let this image settle gently in your mind, a world where love and friendship, hope, and solace flicker quietly beneath the surface, fragile and fleeting, but no less real for their invisibility. A world where the human heart, even when shackled and hidden, beats with a persistent rhythm of connection, defiance, and occasionally joy. You find yourself standing at the edge of a weathered cobblestone street, the air thick with the faint scent of damp earth and wood smoke. The stone walls around you rise like silent sentinels, their surfaces mottled with moss and the slow erosion of countless seasons. Here in this somber shadow of a medieval village, the law does not whisper kindly. No, it bellows like a distant thunder, always ready to roll nearer, heavy with consequences. Imagine the weight of the law pressing upon your shoulders, unseen but unrelenting. There is no gentle hand to guide you, no soft murmured warnings tucked into the folds of parchment. Instead, the law is an ever-watchful eye, sharp and unforgiving, waiting for the faintest stumble, the slightest misstep. One wrong word, one forgotten tax, one impulse of defiance, and you are suddenly pulled into a world where fairness is a faded luxury and cruelty is the grim reality. You walk past a flickering lantern hanging from a crooked post, its pale light casting skeletal shadows against cracked wooden shutters. Nearby, you hear the low murmur of voices mixed with the dull thud of leather meeting flesh. A man, his tunic torn and his face marked with red welts, stands with his back pressed against a rough-hewn pillar. His arms are raised, his wrists bound by coarse rope. The village constable, a stern figure wrapped in a heavy cloak, raises a rod, a cruel implement carved from yew wood, worn smooth by repeated use. The blows fall with a measured rhythm, a harsh cadence that seems almost ritualistic. Each strike sends a sharp ache rippling through the man's back, and yet there is no cry, no plea escaping his lips, only the steady patter of the beating and the flicker of lantern light painting his pain in flickering strokes of shadow and flame. This is punishment not just for crime, but for any hint of insolence, for any shadow of defiance cast toward authority. You notice the crowd gathered a few paces away, faces pale and eyes cast downward. Fear wraps itself around their hearts like a tight cloak. Each person knows that tomorrow it could be them, or someone they love, caught in the merciless grip of the law. To live here is to walk a tightrope stretched over a chasm of punishment, each breath held steady, each step measured with care. You are always one mistake away from punishment. Then there is the matter of taxes, a constant and insistent whisper that gnaws at the edges of everyday life. You hear the soft creak of wooden shutters opening, the rustle of parchments being unrolled under candlelight in a small, stone-walled chamber. The tax collector, a gaunt man with sharp eyes, pores over ledgers patched together from brittle pages illuminated by the wavering glow of an oil lamp. You can almost smell the faint tinge of tobacco smoke that clings to his coarse robes, a persistent reminder of his authority. Taxes here are not the abstract numbers you might imagine. They are tangible, heavy things, barrels of grain dragged from storage, sacks of coin taken from trembling hands, livestock claimed in the quiet hours of dawn. The law demands its due with relentless certainty. There is no grace for hardship, no mercy for poor harvests or sick children. The tax collector's knock can come without warning, rousing families from uneasy sleep, their dreams abruptly shattered by the harsh call of obligation. If you fail to produce what is demanded, if your stores fall short or your coin purse empties too quickly, the consequences are swift and unforgiving. Your goods may be seized, your fields trampled under guards' boots, your home left vulnerable to the cold night. You begin to understand that the law here is less a social contract and more an inexorable force, a steady drain, a slow erosion of your very means to live. And just as the grip of taxation tightens, so too does the shadow of conscription. Without warning, the summons can arrive, an urgent call scribbled hastily on parchment, delivered by a breathless messenger or announced by the clang of a bell. You lie in your bed, the familiar scent of straw and linen wrapping around you like a fragile shield, when suddenly you are thrust into a new reality. The law demands your service, your strength pressed into the machinery of war and conquest. There is no time to plead, no room for negotiation. You are drafted, pulled from the quiet rhythm of your days, from the soft warmth of your hearth, into the harsh clangor of preparation and departure. Your belongings are hastily gathered, your family's faces blurred by tears and silence. The weight of the sword, the cold bite of the chainmail, the coarse fabric of your uniform, all these become part of your new existence. In the camp, the law's cruelty continues in whispered commands and shouted orders, in the sting of lashes for those who falter or disobey. You learn quickly that discipline is not just about order, but about control, a brutal mechanism to keep the gears turning, no matter the cost to human flesh and spirit. Through all this, you carry a constant awareness. At any moment, at any breath, a single mistake, a whispered word, a missed payment, a moment's hesitation, could plunge you into the depths of punishment. The law is a cruel master here, a relentless adjudicator that brooks no error, that exacts its price with cold certainty. You step back from the scene, the lantern's glow dimming behind you. The stone beneath your feet seems heavier somehow, as if infused with the weight of all those silent sufferings. You breathe in the night air, thick with the scent of damp leaves and distant smoke, and feel the quiet pulse of history's shadows. Around you, a reminder that the past, much like the present, knows the harshness of justice wielded without mercy. And with that, you lie down, the world's harshness fading into the gentle darkness, inviting you to rest, if only for a while. You lie awake in the quiet of your small room, the night folding around you like a dark, heavy blanket. The faint scent of worn wood and lingering smoke from the hearth just beyond your door brushes against your skin, a tender reminder of home. Outside, the world is still, save for the soft, distant rustling of leaves stirred by a gentle breeze. In moments like this, when the night feels endless and your thoughts drift like slow-moving shadows, memories come unbidden. You remember them, someone you loved, someone who once shared this very space with you, their presence as natural and certain as the flicker of candlelight on the plastered walls. Their laughter, a muted melody in the back of your mind, and the warmth of their hand in yours, like smooth river stones warmed by the sun. You recall the way their eyes caught the dim light, glimmering with quiet hope, as you spoke of distant places and whispered promises that now feel fragile and remote. But then the memory shifts, as shadows shift in the corner of your vision. They were taken, swept away in a sudden, cruel tide that none of your prayers could stem. Perhaps it was a raid or the cold edict of some distant ruler, the kind of faceless authority that moves people about like pawns on an immense chessboard. Perhaps it was illness, silent and unrelenting, a thief no one can see coming until it has claimed its prize. Whatever the cause, the result is the same: a hollowness left behind, a quiet room filled with echoes. You whisper their name into the darkness, your voice barely more than a breath, as if the night itself might catch it and carry it upward. Jupiter, you murmur, invoking the great god who watches over the skies and the fates of men. Maybe, just maybe, he will hear you. Maybe he will take pity on your grief and grant some small mercy, some flicker of hope or understanding in the vast expanse where gods and dreams reside. But gods do not answer. Their silence is an ancient, unyielding void, as cold and immutable as the stars that shimmer overhead. The heavens watch impassively, their distant light a reminder of how small and fragile your world is. You imagine Jupiter, regal and aloof, with eyes like storm clouds, sitting high above in his marble palace. Perhaps he is busy, or perhaps he simply does not care. Maybe even the gods find some sorrows too small to notice, or too human to comprehend. In the stillness, your whispered name fades into the night, mingling with the soft creak of your wooden bed and the faint rustling of oil-stained parchment stacked on your bedside table. You feel the weight of absence settle over you like a fine dust, invisible but undeniable. The scent of incense from the temple altar, far away now, seems to linger briefly on the breeze, a ghostly perfume that stirs memories of rites and prayers long since forgotten. You touch the rough linen of your blanket, grounding yourself in the tangible world, in the here and now where loss is a living, breathing presence. You try to summon their face in your mind's eye, tracing the lines and curves that made them real. It is both a balm and a blade, bringing comfort and pain in equal measure. You wonder if they remember you too, wherever they are, in whatever shadowed realm or earthly exile. Outside, the night deepens, wrapped in silence so complete it seems as though even the stars have paused to listen. You close your eyes, the whispered name lingering on your lips, a fragile thread connecting you to someone who is no longer beside you. And as the slow rhythm of your breath mingles with the stillness, you drift into a sleep where dreams and memories intermingle, gentle and strange, like shadows dancing softly in the flickering candlelight. You step outside, leaving behind the quiet sanctuary of your modest domus, and find yourself swallowed whole by the bustling arteries of a Roman street. It is early morning, but already the air is heavy, thick with the sense of the city waking from its slumber. The sun is barely above the horizon, casting long, soft shadows that stretch over uneven cobblestones worn smooth by decades of footsteps. The stone beneath your sandals is cool and damp, a subtle reminder that the previous day's rains have surrendered to the dry morning air, leaving behind patches of mud and puddles reflecting the faint pinks and golds of dawn. The street itself is a narrow ribbon, hemmed in tightly by towering insulae, apartment buildings that loom overhead like silent sentinels, their wooden balconies sagging slightly with age and neglect. Their walls are mottled with the marks of time, peeling plaster, faded frescoes, the occasional smear of soot from countless cooking fires. From these balconies hang clothes on rudimentary lines, drying in the still morning breeze, Their mundane colors a quiet chorus against the grays and browns of stone and mortar. As you begin to walk, the cacophony of the city swells around you, though not with the cheerful energy you might expect. Instead, it is a muted, persistent hum punctuated by the occasional clatter of a wooden cart's wheels over rough cobbles, the low murmur of bargaining voices, and the distant braying of animals. The noise is not harsh, but it fills the space with a texture, an urban symphony of everyday life that wraps itself around you like a woolen cloak. Your senses soon begin to take note of the less poetic aspects of this ancient city. The air carries a medley of scents, some pleasant and others less so. There is the faint, almost sweet aroma of baking bread drifting out from a nearby bakery, mingling awkwardly with the sharper, almost sour tang of sour wine fermenting in a tavern's cellar. But underlying all of this is a more insistent, unmistakable odor. The pervasive smell of waste, the unmistakable mingling of human refuse, animal droppings, and the city's overflowing latrines. You glance down to the street itself. The central gutter, a shallow channel carved into the stone, runs like a slow-moving river, a trickle of dark, murky water streaked with bits of straw, scraps of food, and the occasional glint of discarded pottery shard. This gutter is the city's rudimentary sewage system, an imperfect conduit that carries away the detritus of daily life, but often struggles under the sheer volume of the city's filth. At times, when the rains come or the system clogs, the foul water spills over, seeping into the cracks between stones, and occasionally splashing unsuspecting feet. Amidst this, domestic animals add their own contributions. Chickens peck at the ground near a stall selling vegetables, their quick movements stirring up dust and tiny feathers. Goats tied to a post bleat softly, their hooves scraping against the stones, while a lazy dog lies sprawled in the sun, occasionally flicking its tail at flies. The animals do not pause for the human traffic, their presence as ingrained in the street as the stones themselves. What strikes you, perhaps with a quiet absurdity, is the surreal coexistence of grandeur and grime. Just ahead, you see a temple rising, its marble columns gleaming in the soft light, carved with intricate reliefs of gods and goddesses. The temple's steps are worn smooth by generations of worshippers, their hands tracing the cold stone in silent reverence. Incense smoke curls upward from small altars, mingling with the morning mist and imparting a delicate fragrance of myrrh and frankincense that momentarily masks the heavier smells below. Yet just beside this sacred space is a grimy alley where the city's filth seems almost to gather, a place where discarded household waste is piled, and the sewer grate nearby burbles ominously with a low, wet sound. Rats dart through the shadows, their presence both a curse and a reminder of the city's vibrancy. The juxtaposition is striking. Here, the divine and the disgusting coexist, locked together in an eternal dance. The gods look down upon a world that is at once majestic and messy, where prayers and offerings mingle with squalor and stench. As you continue walking, this pattern repeats itself. A grand basilica with its soaring arches and marble floors stands mere steps from a street stall selling fish, its buckets leaking brine-stained water onto the stones. The bustling marketplace is alive with the calls of vendors hawking fresh fruits and vegetables, their voices rising and falling like waves. But just beyond the stalls, you glimpse the weather-beaten walls of a public latrine, its stone seats and drainage channels a reminder of the city's less glamorous necessities. The city is alive, certainly, and in that life. lies a curious blend of extremes. The Romans, with their penchant for order and ceremony, navigate this chaos with practiced ease, their togas and tunics sometimes brushing against the muck without apparent concern. To them, this mingling of splendor and squalor is simply the texture of existence, a world where the sublime and the sordid are inseparable companions. You might find it odd that such moments of beauty, reverence, and art flourish within this gritty, noisy setting. But perhaps it is this very tension that defines the soul of the city, an eternal reminder that human life, grand and humble alike, unfolds in the spaces between the divine and the dirty. And as you walk on, the city's layers unfold like a slow, whispered story, inviting you to listen closely to the quiet symphony of life in ancient Rome. You step through the heavy wooden doors of the public baths, immediately enveloped by a dense, humid warmth that clings to your skin like a second layer. The air is thick with steam, curling and drifting in lazy, slow-moving tendrils, carrying the mingled scents of warm stone, damp linen, and a faint, unfamiliar tang of herbs, perhaps rosemary or bay leaves, infused into the water to mask the more earthy odors beneath. The echo of murmured conversations and the occasional splash of water ricocheting off smooth, worn marble surfaces fills the vast chamber, creating a lively, if somewhat chaotic, symphony that hums softly beneath your skin. Around you, the bathhouse teems with life, a bustling refuge carved out of the city's stone like a warm oasis. People of all ages and classes mingle here, stripped of the usual social veils, their voices low and intimate, yet blending into a constant, gentle roar. The sound is neither unpleasant nor jarring. It is the ambient heartbeat of shared humanity, a comforting reminder that you are not alone in this fleeting sanctuary. Yet despite the closeness, there is an unspoken respect for the fragile privacy each person clings to, even here amid the crowd. You move cautiously through the throng, your bare feet feeling the smooth, cool tiles beneath them as you navigate past clusters of bathers conversing quietly, their skin glistening with water, catching the soft glow of sconces lining the walls. The flicker of candlelight and oil lamps casts long, wavering shadows that dance upon the stone walls, lending the space both warmth and a gentle mystery. It is a room both ancient and alive, shaped by countless rituals of cleansing, relaxation, and whispered confidences. Finding a spot near one of the larger pools, you dip a tentative hand into the steaming water, feeling the heat seep through your fingers, chasing away the chill that has clung to you since morning. Slowly, you lower yourself into the bath, the warm embrace soothing tight muscles and quieting the relentless chatter of your thoughts. Around you, the water ripples gently as others settle in, some sinking into the depths with a sigh, others leaning back against the stone. Edges, eyes half closed, savoring the rare comfort. This bath is no mere convenience. It is a precious luxury, a brief interlude of indulgence in a world often marked by toil and hardship. For many, the baths represent a moment of respite, a chance to wash away more than just the dirt of the day, but the worries, the burdens, the unspoken struggles carried beneath weary skin. Here, surrounded by strangers yet momentarily removed from the usual demands of life, you can breathe differently, moving through the warm water like a secret escape. But the baths are also a space of negotiation and movement. They are crowded after all, and the luxury is shared among many eager souls. You feel a gentle pressure as others shift closer, the pool's edges slowly shrinking with the influx of bathers. There is an unspoken rhythm to it all, a delicate dance of presence and absence, of taking and yielding space. You steal small moments of stillness, of warmth, but they are brief. Soon, a ripple near you grows into a larger wave as a group of boisterous men enter, their hearty laughter and loud voices cutting through the ambient hum. Their arrival disturbs the calm, and you find yourself nudged gently, yet insistently towards the pool's margin. The bathhouse attendants move quietly among the bathers, their presence a subtle reminder that the time is limited. They wave hands or clear throats when moments become too loud or bodies too crowded, guiding the flow of visitors with practiced gentleness. You sense the inevitable approach of the closing hour or the arrival of a new group waiting their turn. Despite your desire to linger, to soak just a little longer in the soothing heat, you begin to rise, the water reluctantly slipping away from your skin. As you dry yourself by the flickering light, the cool air returning to your damp body feels sharp, almost biting after the bath's embrace. Yet, even as you leave the heated pools behind, the sensation of warmth lingers, a gentle memory that curls within you like a secret flame. The echoes of the bathhouse, the mingled voices, the slip of water over stone, all settle softly into your mind, weaving themselves into the quiet tapestry of your evening. You step back out into the cooler night air, the bathhouse doors closing behind you with a muffled thud. The city's sounds feel distant now, hushed by the thick walls and the lingering steam. Though the baths were crowded and noisy, they offered something rare, a pocket of warmth and connection, a moment to surrender to comfort before the world's demands pull you back once more. And you carry that small luxury with you, a gentle glow beneath your skin as you move forward into the quiet dark. You lie down in the soft earth of a simple garden, the scent of damp soil and fresh herbs wrapping around you like a quiet lullaby. Somewhere nearby, a gentle breeze stirs the leaves on an ancient oak. It's grown a slow, comforting sound, like the world itself breathing in and out. Here, in this small patch of the countryside, time feels different, softer, less rigid than the sharp tick of a clock or the endless turning of calendar pages. It stretches and contracts with the rhythm of days and nights, of sowing and reaping, of chores and fading light. For peasants of old, time was never a neat tally of numbered years or months stamped on parchment or carved in stone. Instead, it was a living, breathing cycle, measured by the things that mattered most to their survival and their connection to the land. The sun's arc in the sky, the whisper of the wind through the fields, the songs of birds marking the dawn, these were the markers of time. Calendars, as you and I might know them, were distant curiosities, often owned only by monks or lords who needed to track grand events or religious festivals. But down here, among the thatched roofs and dirt paths, time was something to be felt, something to be lived. You might not know your exact age, not because no one cared, but because it wasn't as important as the seasons that shaped your days. There was no need to count years with numbers when the cycle of life was measured in the succession of chores and the changing demands of the earth. When you were young, you learned to recognize the signs. When the blackberries turned ripe, your feet grew restless and ran across the fields. When the first frost kissed the grass, you knew to hasten the harvest, your fingers aching from the cold but determined to gather every last ear of corn. Your life was a patchwork quilt stitched together by these natural rhythms. Imagine waking each day to the soft glow of dawn filtering through a rough wooden window frame. There is no alarm clock. Instead, the crow of a rooster insists gently that it is time to rise. You swing your legs over the side of a straw-stuffed mattress and feel the coolness of the stone floor beneath your bare feet. The scent of wood smoke and burning peat lingers in the air, mingling with the faint perfume of dew on wildflowers outside. Your first thoughts drift to the chores waiting for you, feeding the chickens, milking the goats, tending the small vegetable patch by the fence. Each task is as familiar as your own heartbeat, a steady pulse marking the passing of time. Through these daily rituals, you begin to understand the world's quiet calendar. The planting season arrives with the whisper of warm winds and soft rains, and the earth itself seems to awaken beneath your hands. You remember the feel of cool mud squishing between your fingers as you press seeds into the soil, the hope folded into each small gesture. Time slows here, not measured by clocks or documents, but by the work that must be done and the patience it demands. As the months glide by, you observe the subtle shifts, how the lengthening shadows of autumn hint at the coming cold, how the bramble bushes hang heavy with fruit, their prickly branches scratching your arms as you gather berries for winter preserves. There is a tender sadness in the shortening days, a quiet preparation for the months when the land rests beneath a blanket of frost. Winter is not just a season, it is a pause, a hush, a time when chores shift from tending fields to repairing tools, mending clothes, and telling stories by the flickering firelight. In this world, your age is more a collection of seasons lived through than a number to hold on to. You may not know the exact day you were born, but you know the season, the sharp chill of winter, the first blooms of spring, the heavy sun of summer. You understand yourself in relation to these natural rhythms. When the lambs are born, you feel a surge of energy and responsibility. When the harvest moon rises, you feel the weight of months of labor and the quiet pride of survival. This way of measuring life is intimate and grounded. It is a dance with nature, a dialogue with the earth and sky that has been passed down through generations. Stories and memories are tied to these signs, your mother's voice calling you to come inside before dusk, the smell of freshly baked bread pulling you to the hearth, the sound of rain tapping on the roof reassuring you that the crops are fed. Time here is tactile, sensory, woven into the fabric of daily existence. You might find it strange, this lack of precise age or calendar dates, but there is a gentle wisdom in it, a surrender to the flow of life that modern clocks and calendars often obscure. Without the pressure of exact numbers, each moment is given space to breathe, to unfold slowly and fully. The passing year is not a deadline but a story, a quiet narrative of growth, toil, and rest. So as you close your eyes in this imagined cottage, with the warmth of a woolen blanket and the faint crackle of a fire nearby, remember that time can be soft and slow. It can be the rustle of leaves, the layering of seasons, the gentle accumulation of a lifetime measured not in years, but in moments lived deeply. And in that, perhaps, there is a kind of peace, a lullaby sung by the earth itself, inviting you to rest and dream in the steady, ancient rhythm of days and chores. You find yourself settling down beneath the fractured remains of a once majestic statue. Its marble surface is rough and weathered, chipped away by centuries of wind and rain, its features softly eroded until it seems like some forgotten deity, indifferent and inscrutable. The cool stone presses gently against your back, grounding you, a quiet weight in the stillness of the afternoon. Around you, the air tastes faintly of dust and dry earth mingled, with the subtle sweetness of crushed olives from the small woven pouch resting in your palm. You pick one, the skin tender and yielding between your fingers, a deep green that almost glows in the waning light. The texture is smooth, broken only by the tiny crinkles from drying under the sun. As you bite into it, the salty tang dances lightly on your tongue, a whisper of the fertile hillsides and ancient groves that once flourished beyond these stones. Each olive feels like a small, simple luxury amid ruins that have weathered so much more. The empire, immense, sprawling, once humming with the pulse of countless lives, feels like a distant echo now, a soft murmur beneath the steady rustle of leaves and the occasional call of a bird overhead. Its vastness, which might have once been overwhelming, now seems gently remote, like a dream fading at dawn. The voices of senators, merchants, soldiers, and rulers have all been swallowed by time's slow tide, leaving behind only the fragile skeletons of aqueducts and arches, the scattered fragments of carved stone, and a lingering scent of ancient incense still faint in the crevices. Here, under this broken statue, you feel the weight of that distance. Not a heavy burden, but a soft, cradling space in time where the past folds quietly into the present. It's strangely comforting to sit with the ruins rather than rush past them, to listen without needing to understand every detail. You imagine the sculptor's chisel, the careful hands that shaped this figure in a workshop long gone, the flickering candlelight that might have illuminated their work into the deep night. Perhaps this was once a guardian, a protector, its gaze meant to watch over the city's people. Now, it watches over no one but the slow crawl of seasons and the gentle movements of you, a solitary visitor in its shadow. The world beyond this place feels soft and muted, as if the empire's clamor has been wrapped in a blanket of quiet. You just want tomorrow to be gentler, simpler, a day when the sun rises without haste, and the breeze carries nothing but calm. Perhaps you imagine waking to the slow stretch of dawn, the sweet aroma of fresh bread and herbs drifting through an open window, the quiet companionship of shadows and light weaving stories across walls. There is a kind of peace in this moment, a fragile, whispered reassurance that time itself might be patient enough to cradle you as well. The past is not rushing in to claim you, nor is the future pushing too hard. Instead, you lie there beneath the broken statue, eating olives, tasting the soft earth and distant memories, and letting the gentle rhythm of history lull you toward rest. You lie back on your bed, the soft sheets cool against your skin, and the faint scent of lavender drifting in through the slightly cracked window. Outside, the branches of the old elm. Trees sway gently in the night breeze, casting long, slow shadows across the cobblestones of your quiet street. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth and something faintly metallic, like the quiet whisper of rust on forgotten tools. It's a night that invites stillness, a night that encourages you to sink deeper into your thoughts, to drift off slowly, but before you do, you feel a certain pressing weight behind your eyelids, a thought you can't quite shake. Your neighbor disappeared last week. No one speaks of it. The house next door, once filled with the soft murmur of conversation and the clinking of teacups, now sits eerily silent. The windows are drawn shut, the curtains drawn tight, as if to keep the world out or perhaps to keep something else in. When you walk past during the day, the garden shows little sign of care. Weeds curl and twist like forgotten memories, and the gate creaks on its hinges, swaying slightly even when there is no breeze. You ask around quietly, but the neighbors only offer soft glances and hurried excuses, their voices low and hushed, as if speaking too loudly might summon the disappearance itself. It's a strange thing, really, how the absence of a person can be so loud and yet so silent all at once. You press your fingers to your temples, feeling the coolness of your skin, the steady thump of your heartbeat in the quiet room. It's easy to forget in these modern times that life hangs by such a fragile thread. You think about your neighbor, the gentle woman who used to water her roses every morning, who baked bread on Sundays, the one who always nodded kindly when you passed by. And now she is gone. You realize that this is not unusual, not in the way you might imagine. Throughout most of history, death was a constant companion, a shadow that lurked just beyond the hearth's glow. People died young, not because they sought adventure or fell victim to great battles or noble causes, but because the world was simply a harsher place, where even the smallest cut or fever could spiral into something more sinister. You let your mind drift back softly to a time before hospitals and antibiotics, before the glow of electric lights chased away the night. Imagine life in a small village, nestled among rolling hills and dense woods, where the air is heavy with the scent of wood smoke and freshly tilled earth. The sun filters through the canopy, dappling the dirt paths with patches of light, and the chatter of birds blends with the low murmur of daily toil. In such a place, death was woven into the fabric of everyday life. Children, with their chubby fingers and curious eyes, were not guaranteed to grow into adulthood. It was more common for a family to lose one or more little ones before they even learned to walk properly. You might see a mother's arms grow empty, her lullabies fading into silence because the cradle stood still. Illnesses now easily treated, infectious fevers, pneumonia, smallpox, were unrelenting and swift. A cough might linger for days before the patient's breathing became ragged and shallow. The nearest healer, armed with little more than herbs and prayers, would do what they could, but more often than not, the body gave way to the invisible enemy. You can almost feel the cold sweat on their brow, the rasping breath, the slow ebbing of life beneath a threadbare quilt. Sometimes an accident, a fall from a tree, a kitchen fire, a quiet trip on the uneven stones, would claim a life. There were no ambulances to arrive with flashing lights, no sterile wards humming with machines. Instead, the communal grief was quiet, a subdued presence at the next meal, a shadow over the work done in the fields. And yet no one spoke loudly of these losses. Perhaps it was the way of things, or a kind of protective silence that allowed people to carry on. When a neighbor vanished, as your neighbor did, the village would exchange glances but say nothing, as if acknowledging the disappearance aloud might invite it closer. You feel the weight of this unspoken truth settling around you now, like the soft rustle of page-turning in a dimly lit library, the faint crackle of a dying fire. You realize how often death touched these lives, not announced with fanfare or dramatic mourning, but slipped quietly into the background of daily existence, like the setting sun's final glow fading behind the hills. Tonight, as you lie there, the thought lingers how fragile the thread is that binds life and death together. How often in the past, a person simply disappeared from the story, leaving only a faint trace, a memory whispered in corners, and no one dared to say the words aloud. You close your eyes slowly, the room bathed in gentle darkness, and let the stillness settle in. You think again of your neighbor and the invisible thread that now ties their story to the quiet night, the soft shadows, and the slow, steady passage of time. And with that, you drift, softly, into sleep. You find yourself stepping softly into a cool, shadowy chamber, something like a forgotten cellar beneath an old stone house, where the air is thick with the faint scent of damp earth and aged wood. The walls around you are rough and uneven, made of heavy blocks of limestone, worn smooth in places by the slow dance of time and countless invisible hands. Flickering candlelight from a small iron sconce casts long, wavering shadows that stretch out like sleepy fingers across the stone. The quiet is ancient and deep, a silence that hums with the whispered stories of all the lives that brushed past here, long before you arrived. Your gaze settles on the walls, and there, etched into the pale rock, are countless scratches, faint and delicate, like the gentle tracing of a lover's fingertips. These are ancient graffiti, the most humble, most human of marks, scratched names, tentative prayers, bitter curses. They are not polished inscriptions carved by kings or scribes who commanded armies or built temples. No, these are the scrawls of peasants, of people who lived quiet, unheralded lives, whose existence would otherwise have vanished like dust in a breeze. Here, on these stone surfaces, they left whispers of themselves, faint echoes that reached across centuries. You run your fingers slowly over one of these marks, feeling the shallow grooves where a rough nail or a makeshift tool scraped at the stone. It's like touching the edge of a secret, something private, a small rebellion against the relentless march of forgetfulness. Perhaps it was a farmer or a weaver, someone whose name was never recorded in grand chronicles or royal decrees. Someone who, in their brief moment beneath the sun, just wanted to say, "I was here." And so they took a piece of flint or a sharp piece of bone and with patient determination scored their name into the wall. Some of these names are still just legible, simple combinations of letters or symbols. Perhaps a few letters that might have been the beginning of a fuller name, now eroded by time. Others are accompanied by faint, looping prayers written in the worn languages of their day, begging for a safe harvest, for protection from disease, for the courage to endure the long winters. You imagine a quiet person, perhaps in the cool dusk, pausing by this wall with a heart heavy with worry and hope, whispering their prayer as their hand trembles slightly and carves the words into the stone. This act, small but significant, was a way to send a message into the future, a fragile hope that someone, someday, might read these words and understand. And then, hidden among the prayers, you spot the sharp angles of curses. Bitter, fragile curses, etched in hurried strokes, invocations against thieves or enemies or unseen forces that brought misfortune. You can almost hear, in the quiet, the whispered bitterness behind those marks, the frustration of a life struggling under heavy burdens, the silent defiance of a powerless person seeking to reclaim some sense of agency by consigning their enemies to eternal damnation in stone. These curses are not grandiose, they lack flourish and eloquence. They are raw, immediate, and deeply human. You take a breath, the faint smell of stone and candle wax filling your nostrils, and you feel the weight of all those unrecorded lives pressing gently against your skin. It's a strange sensation, part awe, part melancholy, part connection. These scratches are the only way many peasants marked that they ever lived. No monuments, no statues, no elaborate tombs. Just these humble marks on cold stone, fragile as spider silk, yet stubbornly persistent. And here you are, standing before this wall that has witnessed centuries. Your hands feel the roughness of the stone, cool and solid beneath your fingertips. You notice a piece of flint, lying nearby, tucked away in a crevice. It calls to you, quiet and unassuming. You pick it up, feeling its jagged edge prick softly against your palm. Perhaps it's silly, or maybe it's necessary. You reach out, and with gentle pressure, you scratch your own name into the stone. The letters are crude, uneven, but unmistakably yours. You imagine the moment stretching out like a whispered secret, your own name joining the chorus of those who came before, a small rebellion against invisibility. It's a moment of quiet defiance, a mark that says, I was here, I mattered, even if only for a little while. The stone holds your name now, a silent witness, as it has done for so many others. You step back and look again at the wall, bathed in the flickering candlelight. The names, prayers, and curses shimmer faintly in the shadows, like echoes of voices long stilled. And in this stillness, you feel the gentle pulse of connection, across time, across lives, across the quiet longing to be remembered. You breathe deeply, the cool air filling your lungs, and the stone beneath your fingers seems to hold a warmth, a kind of slow, steady heartbeat. Here, in this ancient chamber, the past and present meet in the simple act of scratching a name. And as your eyes grow heavy and the shadows dance softly, you carry with you the quiet comfort of knowing you are a part of this endless, whispered story. You find yourself in a quiet garden at dusk, where the fading light wraps everything in a gentle, amber glow. The air is soft and warm, carrying the faint scent of blooming jasmine and the distant melody of crickets beginning their nightly chorus. The stone path beneath your feet feels cool and smooth, worn by countless footsteps that have come and gone over many years. Alongside the path, an old wooden bench sits nestled beneath a sprawling, ancient oak, its broad limbs casting long, dappled shadows over the ground like lazy brushstrokes on a canvas. On this bench, you notice an old man, his silver hair catching the last rays of sunlight, giving him an ethereal halo. His posture is relaxed, almost fragile, as though the weight of many decades rests gently on his shoulders. His hands fold loosely in his lap, fingers trembling slightly with a calm, rhythmic motion. The wrinkles etched into his face speak of a lifetime lived quietly and thoughtfully, each crease a story, a memory, a secret whispered only to the passing years. His eyes are closed, eyelids fluttering faintly as if following some distant, serene dream. The soft evening breeze carries a hint of the earth's coolness, brushing against his weathered cheeks and tousling a few wisps of his thinning hair. The faint rustle of leaves overhead mingles with the subtle creak of the bench's wooden slats, a gentle symphony for this tender moment of stillness. In the hush of the garden, the old man stirs just slightly, his lips parting in a slow, deliberate breath. From his quiet throat emerges a muttered phrase, barely audible, like a whispered secret meant only for the shadows. Why did the emperor never lose at dice? He murmurs with a faint, playful inflection that hints at a mischievous grin beneath his closed eyes. The words hang in the air, delicate and ephemeral, almost swallowed by the evening's calm. No one is near to catch the punchline. The garden remains tranquil, indifferent. His voice is a soft thread weaving through the twilight, a murmur lost to the rustling leaves and the gentle sway of branches. The quietness seems to cradle his joke, as if it were a fragile thing, too precious or perhaps too silly to disturb the peacefulness surrounding him. You sense that this jest, like a small, flickering candle in the vast cathedral of time, is meant as a private breeze of amusement, a tiny rebellion against the vastness of history and the weight of countless reigns and empires long vanished. It's a moment of lightness, a brief human flicker in the twilight of a long life. And as the old man's breath slows, the shadows deepen, and the garden welcomes the coming night, you feel the gentle closing of a chapter, soft and slow, as delicate as the final exhale of a forgotten story whispered on the wind. You lie back in the soft cradle of shadow and silence, the gentle flicker of a single candle casting long, wavering shapes against the rough stone walls. Outside, the low murmur of winds taps softly at the window pane, like a distant lullaby meant only for you, a whispered invitation to drift deeper into stillness. Here, in this calm moment, you might begin to wonder, was this story ever truly about history? Or was it something quieter, more intimate, more elusive? Perhaps it was never the grand sweep of dates and battles, kings and empires that held the heart of this tale. Instead, maybe it was the faint breath of one solitary soul, a single flickering candle struggling against the vastness of night and storm. You imagine that person now, one among millions, yet so distinct, so fragile in the vast chorus of existence. In your mind's eye, you step softly through the threshold of time, leaving behind the grandeur of towering cathedrals and sprawling battlefields. You find yourself in a small, dimly lit room, a humble chamber filled with the scent of old parchment and smoldering incense. The air is cool but comforting, pressed gently around your skin like a familiar shawl. There, nestled in the corner, is that one candle, its flame steady but delicate, a tiny beacon in the enveloping darkness. It's easy to forget, you think, how each of those flickers once belonged to a person, someone who lived, loved, feared, and dreamed beneath that fragile light. Their story might never have been recorded on the grand scrolls or etched into marble, but in this quiet reflection, their life feels just as real, just as vivid. You can almost hear their slow, measured breathing, feel the rough texture of the cloth that wrapped their shoulders against the chill, and taste the faint bitterness of the herb tea they sipped as twilight deepened outside. You breathe in, drawing the calm scent of wax and smoke deeper into your lungs, and for a moment, you sense the unspoken thoughts that might have passed through that soul's mind. Perhaps they wondered about the future beyond their walls, about the people they'd never meet, or about a world that shifted and turned far beyond their reach. Maybe they held on to a memory, a touch, a smile, a promise that gave them warmth amidst uncertainty. In that stillness, you realize that history is not just the grand parade of events and names, but the quiet accumulation of these countless flickers. Each one a testament to a single life lived against the relentless tides of time, like that candle bravely standing against the storm. And though their flame might have long since been extinguished, its faint glow lingers, woven into the fabric of all that came after. You imagine pressing your hand gently against the rough stone beside you, feeling the cool solidity beneath your fingers, a grounding presence as your thoughts drift further into the night. The candle's flame dances softly in response, a rhythm slow and steady, inviting you to slow your own heartbeat, to sink deeper into the embrace of quiet contemplation. Maybe you think that is the true gift of stories like this, not to awaken restless curiosity or kindle fiery passion, but to offer a peaceful harbor, a moment to rest amidst the ever-turning pages of history, to remember that behind every chapter and every line, there was someone who simply lived, breathed, and hoped beneath a candle's glow. And as your eyelids grow heavier, the flicker of that lone flame becomes a gentle pulse syncing with your own, a tender reminder that even the smallest light matters in the vast and endless night. You close your eyes, letting the soft shadows carry you away, cradled by the quiet intimacy of a single soul's story, drifting slowly into dreams. The city sleeps now. The clatter of carts has softened to a distant murmur. The harsh voices of merchants bargaining have dwindled into faint echoes fading beneath the weight of night. You step inside this quiet world, where the harsh edges of daylights demands blur into gentle shadows. The stone streets, once alive with the rattling of wooden wheels and the patter of hurried feet, are now wrapped in a deep hush. Even the wind seems to tiptoe through narrow alleys, carrying with it the faint, lingering sense of smoke and something sweet, baked bread cooling on windowsills perhaps, or the last traces of herbs hung to dry. The city breathes slowly, exhaling centuries of toil and trouble, letting the weight of the day dissolve. There's an old, familiar comfort here, in the way the world dims, how time folds softly into itself. The stone walls, worn smooth by countless hands and faces, cradle the silence like a whispered secret. You can almost feel the pulse of the city beneath your feet, steady, slow, a heartbeat winding down after a long day. Behind heavy wooden doors, candles gutter quietly, their flickering flames casting tender, trembling light on cracked plaster and faded tapestries. In a humble chamber, the scent of beeswax mingles with the faintest trace of incense, a slow-burning promise of calm. You imagine the faint scratch of quills on parchment somewhere nearby, the restless scribble of a scholar finishing notes before surrendering to sleep. The ink, dark and fragrant, stains the page, a record of a world now stilled. Even the animals seem to sense this tranquil spell. A stray cat, fur tipped with dust and moonlight, curls into a soft ball on a cool doorstep, purring a slow lullaby against the stone. Farther off, the faint coo of a dove murmurs from a hidden rooftop niche, a soft, rhythmic note to accompany the city's quiet breathing. You lie down on a patch of cool grass just outside the city walls, the earth beneath you firm and steady, cradling you like an old friend. The night sky stretches vast and tender above, pinpricks of light scattered like tears of silver. The cool air carries the faint rustle of leaves and the distant babble of a forgotten fountain, water whispering over smooth stones worn by time. Here, in this delicate pause between the day's chaos and tomorrow's promise, hardship softens. The sharp edges of hunger, cold, and endless labor blur into the shadows, softened by darkness and distance. Pain, exhaustion, and struggle, they fold into the night like fragile moths, their wings catching the candlelight of distant windows before fading into the dark. You breathe in slowly, the crisp night scent mingling with the faint, comforting aroma of damp earth and dried herbs. The city, for all its weight of stories and sorrows, rests now. And in this gentle stillness, you find a space for quiet curiosity, a slow journey into the past, where every whispered breath of history feels like a shared secret, told beneath the soft glow of a single candle flame. You've made it here to this quiet, dimly lit corner of the night, where the world slows and the edges of your thoughts begin to soften. It wasn't an easy path, was it? The day stretched long, heavy with everything you carried, the weight of words, the hum of endless tasks, the restless flicker of a mind that refuses to settle. But now you have stepped inside this gentle pause, this small refuge carved out of time, and just for a while you can let everything else slip away like a soft sigh. Imagine yourself sinking into a deep, welcoming armchair, one with cushions that sigh beneath you, soft and worn from many evenings like this. The fabric smells faintly of old wool and a trace of lavender, as if it's been waiting patiently, holding space for you to arrive. You can feel the slow, steady pulse of the house around you, the faint creak of wooden beams settling, the whisper of a breeze brushing past, carrying the scent of damp earth and distant rain. You've made it, just barely perhaps, but here you are. And that is enough. It's more than enough. You can feel the quiet invitation to let go seeping through the air, like the slow unwrapping of a heavy cloak you've carried all day. It's safe now, safe to release the tight grip on your thoughts, to soften the tension in your shoulders, to breathe a little slower, a little deeper. There's something strangely comforting in this moment, isn't there? The way the shadows stretch long across the room, folding softly into the corners, blotting out the sharpness of the day's edges. The faint flicker of candlelight dances on the stone walls, casting gentle, flickering shapes that sway like ancient spirits whispering their old secrets. You don't need to chase those secrets. Just watch them for a while as they fade and reform, easy and slow. You might notice the faint smell of parchment and ink, the subtle hint of something written long ago, preserved in the quiet stillness. It's a scent that speaks of stories paused, waiting to be told again. And here you are, ready to listen. The world outside might still hum with noise and urgency, but this space holds only calm. The faint crackle of burning wood in the hearth adds a warm, familiar pulse beneath the hush, like a steady heartbeat syncing with your own. Let yourself sink deeper into this calm. The muscles in your hands and legs soften, as though the very air around you is encouraging release. The steady rhythm of your breath becomes a gentle tide, ebbing and flowing unnoticed, carrying you further from the clamor. And with each exhale, you might feel the tightness in your chest loosen, the racing thoughts slow, drifting like leaves on a slow-moving stream. It's okay to be tired. It's okay to feel worn. You don't need to prove anything here. This moment asks only that you be present, that you allow yourself the grace of rest. The long day's demands and worries are distant now, like footsteps retreating down a stone hallway, echoing faintly but growing ever quieter. In this space, you're allowed to be fragile. You might feel a gentle pull towards sleep, a soft flicker of heaviness in your eyelids, and that's a kindness the world often forgets to give. You've carried so much. Now you can let it all settle, like dust falling slowly from a forgotten shelf. Nothing here needs your attention but the slow, tender unfolding of your own rest. Imagine the night as a vast, velvet curtain drawn softly closed outside your window, muffling the world's noise and inviting stars to twinkle far away. The air is cool but not cold, wrapping around you like a familiar shawl, whispering quiet reassurance in a voice too gentle to catch fully, but comforting all the same. You might notice the faint taste of something warm and sweet lingering on your tongue, as if the night itself breathed it into the room, something like a hint of honey or wild herbs, subtle enough to be almost forgotten, yet lingering just enough to soothe. It's the kind of detail you don't need to analyze or hold onto. It's simply there, a soft caress, part of the slow exhale of the evening. Here, in this hushed moment, your journey is honored. The steps you took to arrive at this stillness, the small victories, the quiet endurance, the barely spoken "I'm here," all of it matters. Not because it was grand or heroic, but because it was yours. And now, with the gentle night wrapping around you like a tender promise, you can finally let it be enough to simply be. So, as you lie down, or sink further into your chair, or fold your hands in your lap, feel the steady rhythm of peace growing inside you. No need to hold the day or wrestle with your thoughts. Just breathe, just rest. The night will carry the rest. You've made it, just barely. And now you can let go. Now, as you settle deeper into the quiet embrace of this story's gentle night, imagine yourself stepping into a small, warmly lit room. The air is soft with the faint, sweet scent of burning beeswax candles, their gentle flicker casting shadows that dance lazily on the rough-hewn stone walls. The faint crackle of a hearth fire hums at the back, a low and comforting murmur, like a lullaby whispered by the stones themselves. You find yourself drawn to a wooden table, worn smooth by countless hands over the years. On it rests a simple meal, prepared with quiet care. A crusty loaf of bread, still warm, its crust crackling softly as you break it apart, revealing a tender crumb that almost melts on your tongue. Nearby, a small bowl holds thick, golden honey, rich with the scent of distant wildflowers and sun-drenched meadows. You dip a piece of bread into it, tasting sweetness that feels like a gentle caress, a balm for any lingering weariness. Beside the bread, a cup of herb-infused tea steams softly, its aroma unfolding slowly. Notes of chamomile, a hint of lavender, and the earthy whisper of valerian root. You bring the cup to your lips, feeling the warmth spread through you like the slow glow of dawn chasing away the night. Each sip is a quiet conversation between you and time itself, a moment stretched out and unhurried, inviting you to simply be. As you sit, the weariness of your journey begins to dissolve. Your body relaxes, settling into the solid comfort of the wooden chair, its back curved just enough to cradle you. Like a gentle hand, you feel the weight of the day lift, replaced by a profound stillness, a softness that sinks deep into your bones. The fire's glow flickers in your eyes, a slow, rhythmic pulse that matches the steady rhythm of your breathing. Outside the small window, you hear the muted rustle of leaves stirred by a tender evening breeze. The world beyond feels distant and calm, wrapped in a serene silence that invites your thoughts to drift like clouds on a lazy, endless sky. You lean your head back, resting it lightly against the cool wood of the chair, and close your eyes for just a moment, surrendering to the quiet. You are safe here. In this space, time slows. The past and present seem to fold together gently, like the soft pages of an ancient, cherished book closing at the end of a long, thoughtful day. The story you've traveled through lingers not as a weight, but as a warm ember, glowing faintly in the dark, an echo of human life, even in moments of stillness. Let yourself be cradled in this peace. Your breath deepens, slow and even, matching the soft pulse of the hearth's heartbeat. The shadows lengthen, wrapping the room in a velvet cloak, rich and comforting. There is nothing urgent here, no need to hurry or worry. Just a steady, lasting calm. If you listen closely now, you might catch the faintest whisper of history's breath, rising softly like the gentle smoke curling from the candle's flame, an ancient lullaby meant to soothe and steady. You are part of this story, and yet you are free to rest within its gentle embrace. So you lie down now, letting the quiet seep into every corner of your being. The soft weight of a woven blanket settles over you, its fabric worn and friendly, like the arms of someone who has waited long to offer comfort. The warmth of the fire continues to hum softly, a slow, steady heartbeat in the room's gentle hush. Feel your eyelids grow heavy, the world narrowing to the steady rhythm of your breath and the tender glow of the candlelight. The stories of the past, the people who once walked these paths, their lives and lives' endings, all fold into this moment, resting beside you like old friends bidding you good night. There is nothing left to do but release your thoughts, let them drift away like leaves carried on a sleepy stream. The night welcomes you, soft and still. Sleep comes now, not as a sudden surrender, but as a gentle unfolding, a slow closing of the eyes to the world's busy hum, a quiet return to the cradle of warmth and rest. Let yourself drift, wrapped in this peaceful space, until your dreams gently take you, and the night carries you safely, softly, into morning's quiet promise. You lie back gently on the cool, smooth stone of the crypt floor. Around you, the air is still, heavy with the delicate scent of aged marble and faint whispers of myrrh. The flickering light of a single candle casts slow-moving shadows that dance softly across the walls, tracing the graceful curves of ancient reliefs worn down by time. This is a place where countless souls have come to rest, their stories folded into the cold stone, memories folded away like parchment in a forgotten scroll. You feel the weight of quiet centuries pressing gently against your skin, a subtle hush wrapped around you like a velvet blanket. Here, in the heart of the eternal city, beneath layers of dust and the steady pulse of earth, the world seems to hold its breath. The chaos of your waking hours slips away, replaced by the profound stillness of a place untouched by hurry or worry. As you breathe slowly, inhaling the faint trace of incense and the mineral scent of stone, you remember the dream of Rome itself, the dream carried by those who walked these streets long ago. They dreamed of empire and order, of marble temples reaching toward the sky, of laws whispered quietly in candlelit chambers, of the ebb and flow of life in a city that thrummed with power and grace. You become that dreamer, softly folding into the layers of history, folding into the dust that once clothed proud senators and humble citizens alike. The dust here is not just earth, it is memory. It clings gently to your skin, a reminder that all things must rest eventually, that even the mightiest will one day return to the soil. You feel yourself dissolving into this timeless hush, as if the very stones beneath you are reaching out to cradle your final breath. Rest now, Roman dreamer. Let the stones forget your shape, but remember your story as a soft echo, a murmur in the quiet. Feel the ancient city's heartbeat slow and fade, like the final notes of a lullaby whispered by shadows. Let the dust carry you home, tender as a whispered promise to the silence beyond the reach of time. And as your eyelids grow heavy, the last flicker of candlelight dips low, and your breath becomes gentle and still, you are wrapped in the soft embrace of eternity. Rest here in the gentle hush of history beneath the patient gaze of stone. Rest and dream on.